So what will be the future of and what should be the future of billionaire and politician friendships? 100-year-old legacy newspaper or the 25-year-old influencer? Who do you prefer engaging with?
Well, I think newspapers,
Thank you.
not only the white-collar AI, but the blue-collar AI, which involves robotics. If it's not 2028, by 2032, the job market will already be starting to change.
What will be the future of and what should be the future of? So I'm going to give you a topic. You have to tell me what you think will be the future of this and what should be the future of.
Okay.
So what will be the future of and what should be the future of billionaire and politician friendships?
You know, politicians have historically hung out with, Franklin Roosevelt, was a very equity-oriented president, did brilliant things. He hung out with rich people. He hung out with people who were creating companies and saw problems and things like that. So I don't think there's some sin, there. You can, if you're not careful, you can get, a level of corruption or, misset the priorities of the country. But hearing from business people about what's going to happen and what would let them move faster, that's an important dialogue. When I started Microsoft, I was proud that I had no office in Washington, D.C., and I learned to regret that. That was a mistake.
Okay, what will be the future of and what should be the future of family?
I'm not sure that changes all that much. Having kids is a miraculous thing. Having grandkids is a miraculous thing.
So I'll tell you why I asked this question, because in your book, Source Code, you gave a beautiful story. You said that the best code that you have ever written in your life was the first code that you wrote. And you wrote that code when you were walking, you wandered on a path, a snowy path, and you wrote code in your mind. And that is still date the best code you've ever written. With all the technology now in everybody's hands, it's tougher and tougher to expect children to wander into these stray paths and probably come up with that kind of code. So how does a parent, give children these snowy path moments that happen for you?
Well, my parents actually struck a pretty good balance of setting very high expectations and giving me a lot of freedom. In those days in the United States, you could go out to play and your parents wouldn't necessarily know where you were. You could go out on hikes.
Right.
Today, I don't know about India, but today in the United States, this concern that, okay, if it would be even a little bit unsafe, that you're very protective of your kids. And now there's, I think, a recognition that that's probably gone too far, that letting kids hang out with kids, make mistakes, maybe even, get themselves in a little bit of a mess. I think I benefited from that, and
Okay, what will be the future of? What should be the future of truth?
Well, I was naive in thinking that the arrival of the internet would be the most wonderful day for truth, that you could go and somebody would tell you something that was going on and you could look up and say, no, that's wrong. We looked, here's the court filing, here's the statistics. It was interesting to read Harari's recent book, Nexus, where he says, and I'm sure he's right, that when the printing press was invented, the most popular books were about how to find and kill witches. And so that was the societal use of this, fundamental thing that now we look back on it and we say, yes, the printing press, what a fantastic thing. So the idea that for meaningful periods of time will take an advance and it'll actually go against human interest, I found that fascinating. But until social networking came along and it created a sense of jealousy and concern, I always thought that technology was an unadulterated good. The fact that you could, use the word processor or spreadsheet, all that stuff. In those early days, it wasn't questioned. In fact, when people would say, they'd say, what's wrong with technology? The answer was that it wasn't getting to all the kids. It was the so-called digital divide, that we needed to have everyone have access.
Okay. What will be the future of the relationship between Silicon Valley and Washington, D.C.?
Well, politicians are going to have a tough time with AI because it's, they're not that hands-on, and it's advancing at a pretty quick rate. The 2024 election, AI was not part of the debate. It wasn't like, okay, this one has good AI policies and this one doesn't, or any contrast. And I was a little surprised at that. But I would predict that by 2028, our next presidential election, that policies around AI, how you shape it in a good way, will be a primary topic, one of the three most important topics, because people will be starting to see not only the white-collar AI, but the blue-collar AI, which involves robotics, which today is very limited, but the number of people working on that, the advances in that, guarantee, if it's not 2028, by 2032, the job market will already be starting to change.
So, good or bad, the relationship between Silicon Valley and DC?
I'll say good, just because I like to say nice things.
Okay, the future of brand India. Brand India.
India's, not many people are offended by India. I mean, India's, it's got you meet great Indians all over the world, people like Satya Nadella. And, a lot of people don't know much about India, to be honest. They should come more, learn more, lots of great things they could do. If India can stay on the path, this 2047 plan, that's just not just beneficial to India, it's beneficial to the whole world. And the fact that you have 20% of humanity that runs, semi-chaotic, but truly democratic elections, and works out all the priorities, and there's more money for health, there's more money for education, the metrics about, where are we falling short, what are the aspirational districts where we need to do better. The fact that the competition really is in good governance, not Group A is going to get advantaged over Group B, which if you go back far enough in Indian politics, there was a lot of, Group A is going to be advantaged over Group B. But as voters, enough voters are voting, hey, is this guy really going to run the country, including things like health, well enough, that's created a very positive dynamic that you're competing in good governance.
Did you guys discuss this with you and the Prime Minister? Did you all discuss exactly this when you met him yesterday?
Well, we always have a lot to discuss, including AI and the latest projects that we're involved with. I have to say he's been very encouraging about the engagement in India. He was glad to hear our board was here and that we were going to invest even more in Indian innovation.
Fantastic. Okay, the future of nationalism.
Nationalism is often gets extreme in a scary form. If you go to the Olympics, you see nationalism in this really benign form where, like in Paris, there was a great Olympics. I was lucky enough to spend time there. The French were so excited that their teams were actually doing pretty well and that, they had done a good job of hosting. And the whole atmosphere, and it was okay, when people get up and root for the USA thing, it's not really at the expense of other people, and then you play those national anthems. Some of them are not as good as others, but that's nationalism in a really fine way. Nationalism at its most extreme leads to wars. And, there's no way to destroy value in lives more than wars. In general, we haven't had, since World War II, that many wars, although right now, we've got a little bit of an uptick, and it's a horrific thing. So we have to shape nationalism. In Africa, a lot of those countries, it's weird to say, but they don't have enough nationalism. When you say to somebody, are you a citizen of X? They'll say, not really, I'm a member of this tribe. And so it's almost like the extreme of Indian politics, where when they go to vote, they're voting for their fellow tribe members, independent of how well they're going to run the primary healthcare system.
Sure. No, true. Okay. Social media or big pharma? What's more urgent need of regulation?
Well, it's interesting. Social networking, people can say, including me, can say, oh, social networking had all these negative things. But other than maybe banning young kids from using it up to a certain age or having certain protocol that it's not distracting kids in school, other than that, whenever I say to people, okay, striking the balance between not, saying that all vaccines are terrible, which can, cause people to harm themselves, it can be an awful thing. But where do you draw the line between free speech and harmful speech? Now, when you get things like in Myanmar, where you're inciting riots and things like that, and the social networking is part of that, that's clearly over in the negative. You're just denying the Holocaust, or you're, saying that vaccines are all bad and terrible, or that, I'm doing something, with tracking people's whereabouts with vaccines. I mean, that's just not helpful. But how exactly you draw that boundary? And we have, over 150 countries that each get to try to do that. I don't know any country that really has this great formula for where you strike that balance.
Okay, so I'm getting a few hand signals from the back, so I know we're running out of time. We've got about 5 minutes more, right? 5 minutes, 6 minutes, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to try to get through a few more questions. I'll ask you to keep the answers a little bit shorter.
I'll try.
Okay, your favorite innovation from India that can tackle a global problem?
Oh, I have to say DPI.
DPI, okay.
I mean, cheap vaccines, DPI, that's a hard choice for me.
Okay, which country do you see winning the chip wars? Is there one winner and one loser?
Well, as of today, Taiwan, in terms of making chip, is the winner.
Is there a loser?
The U.S. is still where the most advanced chip designs are doing, but it's going to be a pretty global industry because, and you've got to give South Korea credit. They've done pretty well as well.
Is there a loser?
As long as the chips are flowing freely. If there was a war over Taiwan and all that capacity happened to be destroyed, the entire world would have a wild chip shortage for a period of time. There are some incredible innovations to make chips in a very different way than we do today.
Right.
And I fund several of those. Those are 5 to 10 years away. But the current machines, there may be much better ways to do that, but that won't help us in the near term.
Okay, so we know what excites you about your investment in OpenAI, but is there anything that scares you as a tech investor about your investment in OpenAI?
No, I mean, AI in general scares me because mankind's going to have to shape it, and it's a world, that will feel very, very different. So I worry about AI in general, but no, the people at OpenAI have done a good job. I've worked with Sam and Greg and the team there, and they're great.
Okay, if democracy was a human being sitting on a desktop using Microsoft XP right now, what do you think its status would be? Is democracy shutting down, hibernating, or preparing to upgrade?
Well, the people who do these ratings of how democratic countries are, after World War II, we saw a dramatic rise in that, and now we're actually seeing a slight decline. And I find that concerning because we are better off. I mean, we are absolutely way, 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 way better off. And so not only that decline of democracy, but even the trust in institutions or the degree of polarization. You know, I'm not a social scientist or a politician, but the degree of polarization we have in the US, I'm hoping we can reverse that. And the trust in institutions, you know, we've got to go back and work on that. It's a strange world where the US that elects their politicians, 8% of them think they're doing a good job, and China that doesn't elect their politicians, 80% think they're doing a good job. That's not the way it's supposed to work.
Right. Okay, so a 100-year-old legacy newspaper or the 25-year-old influencer, who do you prefer engaging with?
Well, I think newspapers.
Thank you.
I'm very sad that the business model of newspapers, you know, because we don't have the classifieds anymore, that it's under threat. If you look in the US, you know, who keeps local government honest? It was the newspapers. They did a fantastic job. And the idea that today, you know, we have such a limited number of newspapers that can really do investigative reporting, even at the national level, it's gone down, and at the local level, it's dramatically gone down. And I don't know how to fill that vacuum. You know, I hope some philanthropists decide that's an area that they work on, because that has played, it's a piece of the democratic system that's necessary.
Okay, we'll say a few global challenges, and if you can give a 1 or 2 word solution for each. Math phobia. Phobia for math. Math phobia. Is there a solution for math phobia?
That people don't like math?
Yeah.
Oh, AI tutors.
Okay. E-waste.
Yeah, it's not that big of a problem. I mean,
with all the EVs and the batteries coming with it, it's not a big problem?
We'll recycle those. I mean, there's some incredible companies.
Okay, that's great.
You know, if the, you know, the lithium and a few of the other things, the cobalt, are valuable enough that there's a couple of techniques. I'm a funder of a company called Redwood. I think we'll be fine.
Okay, great. Teacher shortages.
AI tutors.
Okay. All right. If you were to look 10 years ahead, Mr. Gates, which economy would you bet on for higher returns, US, China, or India?
Well, returns if you're saying, you know, whose stock market is undervalued, the Indian stock market is already anticipating some of the growth. I think India, you know, it's great to be in a place where the argument is, will the growth be 5% or 10%? And I think, you know, it's very likely, you know, I doubt it'll get much above 10, and, you know, I don't think it'll get much below 5. And that's an incredible period of time. You know, great opportunities. You know, the government will have more money to spend on healthcare and education because of that economic growth. So India's in a great spot. If you're really rich like the United States, you don't get 5% growth rates. So, you know, we're super happy if we get, you know, 2.5%, 3%. And because of AI, we might well achieve that.
That's awesome. Okay, if you were to diversify a small portion of your portfolio today outside of the US dollar, if you were forced to diversify outside of the dollar, would you choose euro, crypto, gold, or Chinese yuan?
I wouldn't choose crypto.
Yeah. That was an easy option.
I'm a well-known skeptic of pure mania-driven assets. You know, gold, you know, it's up at 3,000 an ounce. It's, you know, I missed that run. So, you know, the euro's not going to go up or down a whole ton. I'm not sure. I mean, I think a basket of equities in general is your best long term. Ideally, a globally balanced basket of equities.
Super.